The fangirl in me is literally like freaking out. I was so shocked when I read those sentences. She went for the cookie. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ayonna Lee. I'm a content creator from the US. Today I'm talking all about Jennette McCurdy's newly released book, I'm Glad My Mom Died.
Puget Sound feeds me illusions.
The title is super provocative, but I love it because it matches the tone of the book. Before we start, I'd like to say that this is a spoiler review. I feel it's important to discuss this book in full, so here we go. My first question while reading this book was, what X-Files episode? In the opening chapters of the book, Jennette McCurdy mentions that she was a background actor in an episode of the X-Files. I'm a huge X-Files fan, so I'd love to know what episode that was. The fangirl in me is literally like freaking out. But now getting into like the nitty gritty of like what I really thought of the book, there were so many instances of abuse in this book. I'm not going to get into all of them, but I am going to talk about a few of them, so trigger warning. Jennette's mother wiping her till she's 10 years old. Her mother giving her physical exams in the shower. I was so shocked when I read those sentences. Her OCD went undiagnosed for so long. The problem with parents living vicariously through their children or seeing their children as extensions of themselves is that them getting help for their child is like admitting that the child is imperfect or that there's some kind of problem. And some parents can't handle this because for the child to be imperfect, they think that somehow relates back to themselves and they simply can't take it. Her mother introduced calorie restriction. At some point, Jennette was so low in her weight that her doctor and her dance teacher were both worried. They even mentioned it to her mother, and her mother chose to ignore them. At one point, she says tomorrow there will be no 2% milk. She thinks that she can starve herself to stay childlike. This was so heartbreaking to hear, but I like the fact that she talks openly in her book about the over-sexualization of children. I too had to deal with this, not as a young actor, but as a young churchgoer. Oftentimes, I was forced to dress modestly. I'm saying that lightly. I was told to cover up because my body started to grow in places people might over-sexualize. I too unknowingly turned to an eating disorder then. I thought, if I can't control my body growing, I'll control what I eat. Another part that I was really shocked at was when Jennette talks about dating a 27-year-old at 18 years old and then turning around and dating a 32-year-old at the same age. I could easily see how at times she turned to alcohol and binge eating, which were both a result of her not being able to escape not just her mother, but the climate she grew up in. Her mom living with her in her first apartment, that was so sad to hear. A lot of people you see moving out and getting in their own apartments and living in their own houses, that's like a moment of growth for them and a really important moment, and she thought she was going to get that moment and it was literally just snatched away from her. She wasn't allowed that experience for many, many years. At one point in the book she says, I'm desperate to feel close to her, but I'm also desperate for that closeness to be on my terms, not hers. I want her to know me for who I'm becoming. I want her to allow my growth. I want her to want me to be me. But that feels more like a fantasy than a possibility. This tugged at my heartstrings. I almost cried because unfortunately for me, the story hit so close to home. Reading this book has been so relatable. All we want from our mothers are healthy relationships with them. But for some, that's a difficult thing to achieve. Maybe because our mothers have mental illness, past trauma, or are simply narcissistic. Another point in this book that really stood out to me, the message her mother left her after finding out she went on vacation with her boyfriend. Dude, like the harassment after, the phone calls, the texts, the things that she called her. After all of that, Jennette still tries to reason with her. That's how parental abuse works. You, the child, begin to bargain for some sort of resolution because your parents will not. She says, I always forget that trying to reason with the unreasonable is unreasonable. In I'm Glad My Mother Died, Jennette is extremely honest and open. I would read this if you're trying to learn more about the inner workings of an eating disorder, and if you're interested in learning more about the entertainment industry. She talks about how she wants her life to be in her own hands, and she eventually gets there. I found myself rooting for Jennette like every turn in this book. At one point she says, I don't feel like something meaty or cheesy right now, in relation to a cheeseburger that she saw at a party. I feel like something sweet, and these days I pay attention to what I feel. And I, the reader, do a little happy dance because, well, she went for the cookie. I feel this so deeply. People tend to judge me when I just randomly go with my gut when it comes to food. but this is recovery. The audiobook was amazing because you actually get to hear Jennette McCurdy tell her story in her own words, and it's just really great. I'm Glad My Mother Died is such a roller coaster to read, but it feels steady and sharp and to the point as well. I've actually never read a book like it, and I'll be recommending it as my favorite book of the year. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you go out and buy copies of Jennette McCurdy's book. Listen to it on audiobook too. It's such a great recording. To Jennette, if you ever see this, I'm just sorry that you had to go through what you had to go through. As somebody who also struggles with, eating disorders, things like that, I wish you the best, and I hope you're living like your best life right now. Oh, if you want to know more about eating disorders, I did a video called 4 Books That Changed My Life. Those books are right here. I'll put it right here, this video. If you're done with diet culture, just check those videos out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys in my next one. Peace.